It's 12 days after the election, and we're starting to get precinct data from counties that will help us illustrate how the vote broke down in a number of key races. The goal in this project that I'm going to be working on is going to extend beyond the current implementation, which is limited to a few counties, and hopefully we'll get this built out statewide. And then in the future, we might have portions of this get actually utilized like within the PDI. So this is a free tool that I've created for anybody to play around with, much like the ballot tracker. And hopefully this helps people kind of understand what happened in the election. This is not a poll, so let's be clear about that. There's a lot of statistical analysis done here. Methods that are used in court cases to analyze elections, methods that are used by researchers. If you took grad school elections policy stuff, this is going to be very familiar to you. If you didn't, and you've worked in campaigns your whole life, which is totally possible that you haven't run across these statistical methods, the number one rule is to take this all in context. You'll see some things in statistical analysis that seems like it just doesn't square, but it might still have validity at the kind of directional sense of where the data is pointing, even if like literally it just doesn't seem like it makes sense. There's other things in here that aren't necessarily statistical, but they are just data aggregation, building in data sets that show the votes at the precinct level, show who voted at the precinct level based on the most recent data from the counties, and then kind of blends that in order for you to be able to do analysis. So this is just a project I've worked on for the last several days, but let me dive into it a little bit. First off, at this politicaldata.vote URL, you can go and find this preliminary kind of results explorer. There are 3 counties that are almost entirely built out: LA, Santa Clara, and San Francisco. And then another 3, Sacramento, San Diego, and Alameda, that only have one side of the puzzle. They only have the county voted data and election results data. They don't have the join to the voter file so we can do statistical analysis of the voting patterns based on voters tied to the election outcome. So I'll dig into how that looks. So let's go. LA County is a great one to start. We have a bajillion different elections we can look at. This is the full LA County election results. Now, one thing to note is that if you were to look at, say, Congressional District 23 is only 2% in LA County, whereas like the 29th is entirely within LA County. So some of these legislative districts are going to overlap the county and not be entirely within. So you'll have to be cognizant of that when you're looking at the analysis. Let's look, since it's been such a hot topic, at the mayor's race. You can see the baseline of the mayor's race here. And then when you scroll down, you can actually go, and we'll click on all of these. You can see the geography of all of the council districts and who won each of the council districts. Now, you could also look at other geographies, like you could look at it by supervisor district. You could look at it by neighborhood, which is a big deal in LA, to see like Pacific Palisades as an example, where obviously Spencer Pratt did well, Pacoima, Karen Bass did well, Filipino Town, that should have been a Nithya Raman district. You can actually click on all and it will go through all of them. Another note here, this mailing city, this is a unique kind of LA thing, but I'll probably keep this. This will be in the whole state, and there'll be places in counties. Like where I live, we write Sacramento, but I don't actually live in the city of Sacramento. So mailing city is going to be people who write that on their address field of their mail. But mailing city in LA means you get to see all the kind of neighborhoods in the valley that are, so here's all the people who write Los Angeles on their mail, but people who write Van Nuys or Northridge, Sherman Oaks, all these kind of valley things you can see in here, which are really cool to see. And then you can go, there's 40 of them. You can go to the next one, Studio City, stuff like that. So you can see the election results by these other geographies. Right now it's pulling 4 candidates. You could add another candidate or 2 or whatever you want and see that. And then if you were to click on Karen Bass, you would see just the density of Karen Bass votes. Click on Nithya Raman, you see the density of Nithya Raman votes and so on. This also should work. If we go to all candidates, does it work in here? Yeah, maybe, yeah. Not in the same way. It doesn't provide as much information. It still works down there, though. Let's go ahead and go to the next kind of things we have here. First off, regressions. So a regression is essentially lining up every precinct, in this case, Democratic, lining up every precinct from the least Democratic to the most Democratic, and then lining up on the other axis the votes from the least votes for Karen Bass to the most votes for Karen Bass. And when you line up these two axes with the results, you get a point dot. So each precinct becomes a point. When you get those points all charted out, sometimes those points just look like scattershot. It looks like a shotgun blast. Sometimes when you get those points, it like goes in a row essentially, and it's almost like magical. The percentage of Democrat goes up, the percentage of Karen Bass's vote goes up, and it's really kind of tight. And what you end up doing is you draw a line of best fit to determine kind of a mathematical formula, y equals mx plus b. Remember that from high school math. Create a formula that explains the election result based on the variable that you're analyzing. So you can say, well, as the district gets more or less Democratic, how is that turning out to votes? And as you can see here, this is Karen Bass's percentage Democrat in every precinct, and then her votes in every precinct. Look at these precincts here where it got really strongly Democratic and her vote was going up. So this is Nithya Raman in Democratic, Spencer Pratt in Democratic, Adam Miller in Democratic. You can see Republican. You're going to expect to see it. Spencer Pratt. See how tightly correlated that is? You'll see down here is the y equals mx plus b formula. And there's actually here also an ecological inference, which is going to be the next tab, simulated range. He got between 41% and 100% of the Republicans. Well, I'll explain this when we get to EI, but ecological inference will often have these kind of 100% values. They're not realistic, but they're there. So we've got that partisanship, but there's other stuff we can look at. We can look at ethnicity. And when we look at ethnicity, we can see this is Latinos, where they are geographically, and you can see the election results. And then you can see this relationship. So you can see Spencer Pratt and Latinos went down. You can see this is Asian voters. Nithya Raman had a positive correlation with Asian voters. When you see Karen Bass and black voters, you can really strong correlation there with black voters. And then when you see, what is this one? White voters. And there's when we get to some other areas, I'll show you Glendale. There are going to be some additional things. We actually have it right here. Armenian, we have Armenian as a separate pullout. And you can see Spencer Pratt did really strong with Armenians, maybe more registered Republicans. LGBT also, which we'll look at this in some of the other races where are more interesting, but a really high correlation for Nithya Raman and the LGBT. The precincts that are heavily concentrated LGBT. And then, of course, if you're looking at this, this is housing, which is interesting. Housing, you can see these relationships. But the other thing you can do in here is you can actually select to view it by council districts. And you can say, okay, I want Nithya Raman's actual council district. And I want to see what the correlations are there to renter versus homeowner. So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff you can do in here. You can look at any of these characteristics by that geography, or you can look at it, citywide, the whole contest. So all that stuff is there to play with. Now, ecological inference, when you come to this, you have to read this, which is the please don't take this too seriously. Don't run and say Paul Mitchell said that 100% of black voters voted for this candidate or 100% of renters voted for that candidate. This is a tool for thinking. It's a tool for analysis, and it is something that is actually accepted in Supreme Court cases and in Voting Rights Act cases, but it is something to read with care. It's something that academics are comfortable with, but a normal political campaign manager might see this and not be so thrilled. So I understand. Please show me the results. This gets into some really interesting stuff that says that The vast majority of Democrats voted Karen Bass and then Nithya Raman. It also shows what's interesting is that Karen Bass got considerable amount of Republican votes. Okay, maybe that is very interesting. And then nonpartisans were clearly Nithya Raman. You can see the ethnic breakdowns are pretty striking. Housing breakdowns, Nithya Raman did a lot better in the housing. We saw that in the graphic earlier. And then age groups, like this is a kind of unbelievable result. This like really huge pop for Nithya Raman among these 35 to 49-year-olds. I have another version that's a simulation that takes what actually happened in the election and blends it with the ecological inference. But to me, it too much just relies on, well, this is what happened. I just don't like it as much. This is more crazy, use at your own risk, but it is interesting. But again, there's no way that Nithya Raman got 84% of the gay vote and Karen Bass got none of it. This is just saying, like, one way that it gets explained is that the ecological inference is saying that if this were true, the data would support it. That's a different way of thinking about it. So goofy. Almost want to take it out of here because I don't want to have people read it irresponsibly or use it wrong. But it is interesting. This is kind of the OG of election analysis, where homogeneous precincts are precincts that are, it used to be precincts that were 100% of one thing, like precincts that were 100% black. If you had a precinct that was 100% black and they voted for Julian Bond, you could say black voters voted for Julian Bond, like, duh. But we don't really have a lot of perfectly homogeneous precincts of any ethnicity even in LA. But we do have a lot that are like 80% of one ethnicity. And so first thing I do here is I break out precincts that are 80% of one ethnicity and then sum up the election results based on those precincts. They can be from anywhere in the city. And then I go down to 60% of anything. So precincts that are 60% white, 60% Latino. You can see there is this question like, did Karen Bass win Latinos? Well, clearly in the precincts that were 80% Latino, she got 38 to 28 over Nithya Raman. And the precincts that were 60% Latino, which is a lot more, 97 precincts, 72,000 voters, 37 to 26. So, you know, this is, and you can add more candidates and so on. Now, one thing that's been totally fun, and it's gotten a little bit of play on Twitter, even though I've just been doing some screenshots, is let's take these and let's correlate them to the candidates in the other races. So in each precinct, how much does the vote for different candidates correlate? And the one that has gotten a little bit of attention here is this: Nithya Raman, Tom Steyer. So you see that high correlation, this strong line at 0.72 correlation. That suggests that there was high correlation there. Spencer Pratt and Steve Hilton, high correlation. You could also see like the city controller's race was interesting. Nithya Raman, Kenneth Mejia. So a lot of cool stuff there. Other races that are interesting. So like if we go to, I mean, obviously the governor's race, we have all this stuff in here for the governor's race that you can mess around with. Let me look at a couple other ones. Long Beach mayor, like all the way down here. Actually, let's see this. This was one of the closest races in the state. Right now, a trustee race in Glendale. If you look at the regressions here and look at party, you can see a really strong partisan tilt for Ingrid Grinnell with Democrats and Greg Kekorian with the Republicans. But then also, as you would expect, a really strong polarization based on Armenian. Not as much. There's not enough data, I don't think, to do the ecological inference. It does it, but that's just an interesting, fun one. Let's look at the 24th State Senate District. This is a close race. It's going to be a Dem on Dem general. And I think one thing that this is a real interesting tool to look at is where were the coalitions and what do you think goes on in this general election? Now, again, you've got this breakdown of the regressions, and we can look at LGBT, and you would imagine that this is a real base for John Erickson. You can see John Erickson and the LGBT population was very strong correlation. Although Brian Goldsmith did do better in more gay precincts, but the John Erickson did much better. One thing that's nice about this is you can also dig down and you could say, okay, well, I just want to see, in West Hollywood. Oh, there's only 9 precincts, so it doesn't do it. So, what are some other ones that are interesting? You can look at any of these races. I mean, the superintendent of public instruction, I tweeted this earlier, that you can actually look at Anthony Rendon. You can see this density of support that he had down in his area. And then you can look at it by assembly district to see that he actually won his assembly seat. I want to say it's 62. Is that Rendon? I think he might be 62. So just a really cool tool to play around with. And of course, we have other counties in here. You can look at the San Francisco one. This is really interesting in regressions. If we look at it with the Asian vote, Connie Chan. I will have an LGBT one in there. It's just not in there right now. The governor race, Tom Steyer just did so incredibly well in San Francisco. And then when you look at it, on age, Tom Steyer, really strong with young people, 35 to 49, really strong, and then kind of flattened out a little bit with older voters, and then was actually negative with seniors. So you might find a lot of this stuff is supported by the polling, but this is just a different lens. Now, in the counties where we don't have all this data, we just have the who voted and that kind of stuff. So you can look here at the 7th Congressional District, Mai Vang and Doris Matsui. And you can see the areas where Mai Vang did better than Doris Matsui. You could also do the race versus race. So you wanted to look at where did Tom Steyer voters go. Mai Vang and Becerra did positive correlation. Mai Vang and Tom Steyer did positive correlation. Matsui and Becerra. Matsui and Steyer did not do a positive correlation. That was just flat. So that kind of stuff is interesting. I haven't looked at it, but I wonder what Kevin Kiley looks like. This is going to be really interesting. I have not looked at this yet, but this should be nuts. Kevin Kiley in Sacramento. Oh, I can't do it right now. When I can do the regression analysis to show the Republican vote, that's going to be really interesting. We can look at governor, and we can see Michael Sansfield and Steve Hilton are positive, but Kevin Kiley and Steve Hilton are positive too. But it'll be interesting to see when I have it paired with the voter data whether or not there's that correlation for Kevin Kiley. So again, early days, just playing around right now. Is totally free. Please send me a note if there's anything that you want to see or that you're interested in or that you have any thoughts. And eventually I'm going to do some other things that are maybe going to take a look starting at the district itself and say, okay, 3rd Council District in Glendale, I want to see all the elections just for the 3rd Council District in Glendale instead of focusing on the 3rd Council District in Glendale race in 2026. So be doing more stuff, but this is just a lot of fun to play around with. I think there are interesting ways to analyze the election and look at what happened. So please send me a note or, let me know what you think about it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.